We're live. Oh my goodness. I'm telling you, the struggle sometimes be real, and the devil is a liar. Okay? I had promised myself starting last week that I was gonna start these lives, y'all, every Tuesday, Soul Talk Tuesday. We're gonna come together and we're going to really talk about this path to spiritual awakening and my journey of processing what it means to be spiritually awakened and to align and live on purpose with purpose. And today there has been a lot of things trying to knock me off my flow, but we're gonna continue pushing through. And we're gonna have this chat today, y'all. We're not sure how long. I'm not sure how long this live is gonna go, but listen, I've got my notes and I'm here. I'm live. And we here. All right, y'all. We here. Dr. Barrows, Empress Maritza. We're on assignment today talking about our path to alignment, honestly. Um, oh my gosh. Give me a second because I think I lost my notes. Um, so listen, last week we talked about how fear raised me, and I thought that was a great place to start because when you recognize the way in which you were raised was with a purpose for that time, you really can understand it, overstand it, do that inner work to really, not hold yourself back and move forward and get into alignment and get into your life's purpose. So that fear that we were raised with today, we're going to focus on the boundaries, right? You see it by the title of this chat. Boundaries are necessary, right? Boundaries, even though I was raised by fear, or because I was raised by fear, the no in helping me set my boundaries was a very scary thing for me to embrace. So I want to talk to y'all about, awakening to your purpose, recognizing what your purpose is. For me, I recognize that my purpose is to help awaken others the way in which I've been awakened. So I'm hoping that through my stories and through my sharing aloud processing, that others will start to really get back on this path of alignment for themselves, right? So I want to do this through conscious living, right? Being conscious and moving in a liberated mind frame, having a growth mindset. I like to anchor myself in truth and truth telling, which means I try to tap into as often as I can that ancestral wisdom and focusing not on becoming, but instead remembering. Because when I'm working and focusing on becoming, I'm coming from this lack mindset, right? I'm coming from a deficit mindset. I'm wondering, what do I need to develop? What do I need to gain? What do I need to better understand in order to become that thing? And that always has your heart and your spirit in that chase, go, go, go mode. And that is not actually conducive to how our spirits naturally, roam this earth. So I try to focus a little bit more on remembering and empowering myself with the belief that everything that I need already exists within me. Okay, so I need to activate, I need to align and then activate and, you know, be intentional from there, right? So, oh my goodness, we need to talk about what the vision is, what your core values are, right? Because all of that plays a role, influences, and shapes what it is that you end up doing every single day. So for me, when I think about my core values and the things that I consciously hold as core values for myself that really anchor and guide my thinking, it would come down to faith, and freedom. Love and peace is in there for sure, community, all of that is included. But at the end of the day, there's two things that I need in this world to be centered. It is the sense of faith, or is that belief and um, walking by faith and not by sight. And then it's freedom. My birth sign, all my cosmic alignments tell me that freedom is something that I seek. Independence is something that I need. So, yeah, I'm basically here today to talk about boundaries, y'all. And I'm just getting back to my notes that I just lost. So just give me a second. We're here in real time. Otherwise, I'll just freestyle this, and that's okay. Because from my preparation for this session, I recall the fact that boundaries for me, I think about when was it early on that I realized whether boundaries is okay or not. And I'll say that, listen, matter of fact, I'm so sorry. We have to definitely take a moment, y'all, because this is our ritual practice, and I completely forgot. That's what happens when your notes get taken away from you. But let's breathe this out, y'all. And this is definitely a good morning to breathe it out, because this morning I am behind. Like I said, I wasn't supposed to be here because the way things have gotten switched up on me, I should have just been rolling on to the other things I got to do. But I promised myself I would be here. And this is one boundary I'm setting for myself on Tuesday, that no matter what, I show up, even if it's for 10 minutes. Okay. Now let's just take a deep breath, moment for breathing, so we can center ourselves and get clear and focused to talk about boundaries. Okay. So we're going to take 4 deep breaths in. We're going to hold for 4 seconds and then release 4 seconds. You can do that at your own pace, and then I'll bring myself back. Okay. Telling you that is always a necessary thing. Even when it feels like out of place, it brings you right back into space. Into that space of mindset. So, y'all, let's talk about remembering, okay? Because I remember the term boundaries not being a part of my childhood. My parents didn't protect any of my boundaries, let alone have their own boundaries. They never identified it as such, described it as such. It really was obviously later on in my older years and through the American culture that I was introduced to this concept of boundaries. And I think that there's even a contradiction in my culture where people feel like when you put up boundaries, you might be limiting yourself from what might be possible, out of your knowledge and control. And I think that boundaries is, well, before we get to what I think about, let's talk about how fear early on didn't let me even consider boundaries. And to have boundaries, you use the magic word no. Do I ever remember saying no when I was younger? Absolutely not. Do I remember feeling fearful when I first tried to stand up for myself and say no? Even when I did try to stand up for myself and say no, did it stick? Probably not. But did I feel good about it? No, not at all. That fear that raised me had me shook, right? Had me scared to say no. Had me afraid of being selfish, right? Because that is a very much negative connotation, to be selfish in our culture, especially within Cape Verdeans. And that's not just to isolate Cape Verdeans, that's just my lived experience. But yeah, if I when I started standing up to say no, there was definitely those feelings of resistance, those feelings of danger inside of you. You don't know why you're feeling that way, but in your mind, you know that this feels right, but your body is giving you all the signals that you just did the wrong thing. Yeah, that's definitely my experience growing up dealing with boundaries. Definitely not something that I was able to do as far as in the house, let alone, of course, not at school, right? That type of respect translated over. Um, and any time that I had to just suck it up and do it, I pretty much allowed myself to sacrifice myself, right, and my own needs for that of somebody else. And it was very often that sacrifice is not reciprocated. So it started to feel very one sided. And those who knew well enough were able to maintain their boundaries and exploit those of others. But when you're growing up, you're not necessarily challenging others in that way. And sometimes there's a loss, right? A loss of attention, a loss of love, a loss of inclusion when you start to set your boundaries, and that might keep people from upholding their boundaries as well. There is also the fear of letting other people down or disappointing other people or not um, being able to satisfy people or keep them happy, right? That might make you feel guilty, make you feel sad. And then you start trying to figure out ways how to make it work, even if it means pausing on your stuff or sidelining or forgetting the things that you're trying to do because of the betterment of other people. And so that shift had to happen to recognize the difference between selfish and self-full. And actually, when you're dealing with someone who reciprocates that type of love, attention, and um, respect to your boundaries, you you actually strengthen your relationships. You actually find alignment, and then you are able to contribute and participate more meaningfully in other people's lives, right? And vice versa. So I think boundaries is a good thing, but it's really difficult to set your boundaries. It's super hard to be empowered and encouraged, strong enough to maintain your boundaries if you're not really in touch with who you are, what vision you have for your life, um, what standards do you maintain and upkeep based on your values, right? So some of those grounding foundational things have to be in place: a sense of self, self-awareness, um, vision for desire and future, likes and wants and dislikes, really knowing yourself. um, will help you do that. But that vision and the values are so critical, because if you don't know where you're going, you'll go anywhere you're led, right? If you don't know where you're going, you don't know where to hold the boundaries and place the stops. If you don't know where you're going and what you're trying to accomplish, it makes it super difficult to figure out um, what's going to support you in getting there versus hold you back or stifle you or completely derail you, you know? So that awareness has to start from within in order for you to set boundaries that really help keep you in alignment. Um, and if you don't know your values, like because you consciously have um, owned these values, committed to these values, letting these values serve as your GPS in life. If you don't know, if you're just taking in whatever's been downloaded into you, and whatever has been imposed upon you, whatever's been set as status quo, whatever has been like the book of rules, the rule of books, the book of rules, the book of rules of life, right? Of what you should and shouldn't do. If you haven't defined that for yourself, it's going to be super, super, super difficult for you to hold boundaries, right? That's when I think of that quote, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. So you really have to figure that out. You really got to get clear. You've got to do some introspection, some um, interrogating of yourself, the way you think, the things you believe, why you believe them, where did they come from, when were they reinforced, and by whom, and do they still serve you? Do they serve people around you? And then that becomes your liberated, conscious set of values and thinking. So then you get clear. So, when people are showing up off alignment with what you've set forth for yourself, it becomes super easy to set those boundaries and say no as a complete sentence, not feel bad about it, don't feel guilty, not be shamed by anyone, right? Um, so that's the first step. Get your values clear. What is it that you want out of life? It's not always what role do you want to take on, what amount of money do you want to make, right? These things obviously all play a part, but it really is about the type of thing that you want to do in life, that if nobody was paying you for it or forcing you to get up to make a living to do it, what would that thing be? Okay, that taps into your purpose, taps into your gift. Um, and when you can understand what that is, and you can sort of derive that plan to help you get there, and continuously build and evolve yourself to the best version, right, in that area. So those things have to be in place in order for you to start setting boundaries that make sense, and boundaries that don't leave your peoples out in the cold, right? The ones who are reciprocating, the ones who are supporting and sort of aligned with you on this mission of your life. So once you do that, then you know what makes sense, what your thresholds are, right? And you start using boundaries as a way to protect and serve, protect yourself and serve others in a way that doesn't sacrifice your own self development and self love. Does that make sense? Shoot, it made a lot of sense to me once I finally got there, right? When I remembered that I was a natural born genius, when I remembered that I am enough, when I remembered that I was born with everything that I need, I stopped trying to chase outward. I stopped trying to seek external validation and confirmation, and instead turned inward, right? And really start defining clearly. It may not be exactly what do I want to be, what do I want to do, but what is your purpose on this earth? What excites you? What ignites you? And for me, it's that desire to remember, that unpeeling of each onion peel, each layer that comes off, the more clarity that comes to me, the more vision that I have, the more contentment that I have, the more peace that I have, the more I can actually slow down and feel like I'm moving forward. Oh my God, it's been totally, totally amazing. Um, and that's what I wanted to share with y'all about my boundaries, journey towards healthy boundaries, and boundaries that, again, don't only serve me, but also serve others. Um, so, y'all, I just am going to wrap this up here because I'm about 18 minutes in, and I'm going to get going for the rest of my day so I don't get too far behind. I promise you this is going to get better. I am in my trial mode. I am getting comfortable with the discomfort of sitting here and randomly talking to myself. I really want to be in conversation with people who want to start exploring these things from the ground up, um, because there's a lot that I'm diving into more deeply when it comes to my spiritual connections, and really getting more and more clear about my vision, because now I know what my why is. I know what my purpose is, right? And my gift. But how do I implement it? How do I bring it out into the world in a way that can be received, that can align with people where they need it and when it's best for them? Um, and that's the path I'm on right now. But as far as at least getting myself on that path of identifying and naming those values, the vision, and my why. That's what I'm hoping these videos can help inspire and empower y'all to do as well. So, y'all, boundaries are bridges, not walls. First and foremost, let's get that clear. Okay. It is a positive thing. It's not a negative thing. It's not because you're trying to keep people at a distance or keep people away. You're just being very mindful and protective of your energy and that exchange from human to human to help you stay aligned in your purpose and your passions. Okay. So, boundaries are a good thing. And, resentment is often the receipt for a boundaries we failed to set. Okay? Sometimes, what that thought right there makes me think of is that sometimes we try to do things out of the goodness of our heart to help other people, not realizing that because we hadn't set really good boundaries, it's actually going to allow us to seep into the area or arena where we are enabling instead of supporting and helping the very people we love. So keep that in mind. You know, when you set boundaries, you have limits, you're not being mean. And I know sometimes it feels like that and we feel bad about it because we come from this upbringing of people pleasing, and we need to let that go, right? You're just sitting in the honesty and truth telling, and people have to, take it or leave it. But know that it's not a factor of you being mean when you set your limits, okay? There is a comment here on my notes. Wherein your life is silence posing as peace? That's so interesting. That's such a great question, y'all. I want y'all to take that question for yourself, okay? And think about it. Let me say it again. Where in your life is silence posing as peace? And I think that silence is posing at peace in my life with some relationships that I have with, I'll say, now in my life, when I consider my immediate family, I have to think about my husband and my children. They are my immediate family. My extended family would then move over to anybody else, right? Siblings and everything. So I would say that for those connections right there, especially my siblings, there is a lot of silence for a long time now. And I think that it is being masked as peace. And I'll accept that for now. It is what it is. But absolutely, absolutely, that silence is peaceful until it's tapped into and rumbled all over again, right? So I'm curious, love to hear y'all in the chat if you like to share what where in your life is silence posing as peace for you. So I got a couple more notes here for y'all. Saying no is a sacred act of returning to self after centuries of being erased. Okay, that's a great, great reminder right there. Saying no is powerful. It could be just as powerful as saying yes. Okay, but you need that discernment, and without vision and clear values, it's really hard to get to discernment. Um, and let's talk about respect, okay? Because it's just a little reflection on culture right now when we think about respect and how fear was the catalyst for developing respect in my household. Just know that while in some households respect means silence, when you're healing through that healing process, respect includes self-respect. Oh man, that's powerful too, right? Because when you are loved through fear and respect is earned and gained through fear, that self respect or that indulgence in self respect minimizes. It's incredible, but it does. And that's one thing you have to remind yourself is, you know, that you can honor your culture while still protecting your capacity. Okay. Protecting yourself, protecting your personal space, Okay, maintaining self-respect. Now, the next time we chat, I probably definitely want to get into talking about higher self and lower self. We're going to be talking about that often. But I want to share that the higher self doesn't hustle for belonging. When you are living in and acting from, thinking and loving from your higher self, oh yeah, there's no need to feel a sense of belonging because you are in your greatest intent of yourself, right? You are here, you belong, you're in your highest state. Oh, what a beautiful feeling. And it leads you to not being selfish, right? But being sovereign, which means being self-full, making sure that you're showing up as your best self so that as you're pouring into others, it's nothing but good energy, positive vibes, and meaningful output, right? So I want to share a few practical tools with y'all. If there's signs that you should be paying attention to that indicates you need some stronger boundaries, okay? Because you could just like go as the wind blows, or go as people dictate around you, or you can really get clear about your desires, your wants, your vision, and the boundaries you need to put in place to make sure that you're getting to where you need to go, right? So some signs that you need stronger boundaries include you feel drained after certain conversations, okay? You over explain your no. It's like when you're trying to tell your supervisor that you're not coming into work today or that you can't stay late, and you have to over explain and justify. None of that is necessary. Even my students, I tell them they need extra time. They're going to be out of class. You don't have to tell me the tragedy in detail that you're experiencing. I respect people's decision and assume that they're making the best decision for themselves at that moment, right? You need stronger boundaries if you confuse people pleasing with love. Okay, definitely. There is a fine line right there because you do things to help people, to love on people, but it's not at the detriment of your own boundaries, your own sanctuary, your own protection of your time. And trust me, when you're the type of person who's clear about your vision, your values, you're gonna get very clear about how you need to spend your time. You recognize that time is limited and time waits for no person. So you certainly use those boundaries as a way to protect your work. Um, Even as simple as boundaries with distractions that come in daily. Okay, you're doing this live. One boundary has to be no notifications. Nobody can come in and say, "Oh, I just wanted to call you and dump this thing on you." Right? Nobody can just do that because you're going to see that phone call, but you're going to decline it. That's part of holding your boundaries. Um, so think about not only time in regards to your boundaries, think about energetic and spiritual boundaries. If you're talking to somebody and you're feeling drained after that conversation, pay attention to that and analyze if it's that person or was it the conversation, what is it, so that you can try to adjust and insert new boundaries if needed. Emotional boundaries, digital social boundaries, as I just talked about. So there are different types of boundaries that you can utilize and help, maintain alignment. So that's what ultimately this comes down to. So boundaries is not a bad thing; it's a good thing, but you have to know some foundational things in order for that boundary to work for you and for your community. Okay, community meaning those people who you keep around, who are in your circle, who are living this life daily with you. Um, it's not a thing that you'll ever hear culturally in my community, at least not from my parents' generation. I think, honestly, from my generation and down, for sure, there's more conversations and talks about boundaries. But don't get it twisted. I'm not saying to keep boundaries up and leave people behind. There's got to be boundaries in place to help you build yourself up to the best place. Then you align with others who have like minds, and similar visions, and those boundaries support everyone, not just in time again, but emotionally, um, energetically, and spiritually, right? So, y'all, boundaries is a big yes, and no is a full sentence. All right. So, y'all, tell me how you enjoyed this. If you stayed with me till the end, 30 minutes in, I can't believe I stayed on this long. I hope this was helpful to you. At some point, drop me a black heart in the chat if you watched till this point. I'll be back next Tuesday. I promise my technology will get better. All right, y'all. I'm signing off. Make sure you live on purpose, with purpose, and with boundaries.